I solemnly assure you, before Abraham even existed, I am. In Hebrew, Ehyeh, the first person, which gives us in the third person, or derived from it, Yahweh, the holy name, the tetragram, which was unpronounceable. It was so holy. An echo of what was revealed to Moses at the burning bush. I am. Essential existence, from which has come all things. He dreamed us, and with a word of creation said fiat. He saw it all, and we were included. Maybe the first wave of angels saw things ahead which were risky, having seen the fall of their brethren, the demons, and all that went with them. And there could have been a question, is there a risk that this second bunch, human beings, can also end up in a place similar to theirs? If so, is it worth it, this experiment? And that has always been a moral dilemma for those who have looked into it. C.S. Lewis has a whole book on it, The Problem of Pain, essentially the problem of evil. But evil does exist. It was because the majesty of God created beings with a similar majesty themselves, which could actually have a right to say no. We can say no, as Lucifer did. And the consequences follow. Don't let anyone keep you in offence. As an elderly priest now said one day in my refectory, and he had been through life, he said, it's still there. Listen. And this perhaps concerns us more than we like to think. Louis of Granada speaks of a young woman who had an unhappy ending. Although in this world she had it all. She was proud of what the Lord had given her in natural beauty. Women, beware. She had a regular life, notice, pious. But her passion to attract attention by the charm of her beauty was the moving cause of her whole conduct. Having fallen sick, she died, having, noticed, received all the sacraments. Now, the story of Father Stephen Shire, who had an experience of death, indicates that it's not enough to go to regular confession. If one does and carries on in the same mode after, it's an abuse of grace and has a massive risk for eternity, as he found out to his cost. But he was going the wrong way until a lady intervened on the other side. He was given a second chance, but with the obligation to warn us, don't abuse grace. While her confessor was praying for her soul, she appeared to him. Saying that she was damned. Damnatus means lost in Latin. I sought only to please the eyes of men. This passion caused me to commit a multitude of sins. It prevented me from receiving the sacraments well. If we knew something of the majesty of God, that hidden majesty that we come close to at Holy Communion, we would come trembling far more than Moses to the burning bush. And it has led me to everlasting torments. Another one who had lost her soul was also obliged to admit to a former friend of hers on this side that it was her passion to please and her vanity and immodesty that cost her her soul forever. We can go back to the Desert Fathers. Now you know that in the Desert Fathers there is this battle going on all the time between the two worlds. And John Cassian went around with Germanus, his friend, taking notes from the Desert Fathers, sayings and teachings. And there's a constant that comes through. The devil tries to ruin the interior life of these holy monks, and therefore their prayer, its purity, through two powerful means. The opposites, attraction and repulsion. Attraction through the carrot of impurity before their eyes, because the devil can get at the will via the imagination over which he has an influence, even possibly in dreams. The other through creating bitterness in such a way that a cancer of unforgiveness comes into the soul and contaminates the purity of prayer. Again, dangling over the mind's eye someone who's upset them. And they can't pray in peace and love. So, a usurer, someone who lends money quite often at heavy rates, had two sons who followed the evil example of their father. One of the two, touched by God, forsook his guilty profession and retired to the desert. Before setting out, he exhorted his father and brother with tears to think, like him, of the salvation of their souls. To no purpose. They persevered in sin and died. God permitted the solitary to know their unhappy condition. In ecstasy, he saw himself on a high mountain, at the foot of which was a sea of fire. It's precisely what little children of Fatima saw. From which arose confused cries, like a tempest. Soon, in the midst of these burning waves, he perceived his father and brother, furiously raging against each other, precisely unforgiveness multiplied infinitely in hell. Mutually upbraiding and cursing each other, and holding this dreadful dialogue: I curse you, detestable son. It is for you that I did injustice and lost my soul. I curse you, unworthy father, who ruined me by your bad example. I curse you, foolish son, who joined your father in his sins. I curse you, the author of my life, who reared me up for damnation. One day, in the same desert, the brethren were talking amongst themselves. One of them was the son, converted of course, of a high priest of the pagan cult. Now, the fact is that these cults are often linked with demons. Hence, when the gospel comes to a dark land for the first time, there's a battle which is of a cosmic nature. The devil doesn't want to relinquish. Their religion is infested with demons. So, this came out in the conversation. He had heard this from his father. He was celebrating, as high priest of this pagan cult, some kind of pagan rite. And at a certain moment he was close to the other side, but the other side, of course, is dark. And he heard this: rather similar to what Leo XIII heard. It was a conversation between demons. The demons had a special interest, obviously, in the desert, and this had been picked up. And I quote, "Their prince was there, enthroned, and demons were coming one after another to him. One had managed to get somebody in some town to do some awful sin, heavy theft, damage to people's property, and civil unrest. And Lucifer asked, 'How long did you take?' 3 months. 'Lash him with 40 lashes. Another came up. 'I managed to cause a huge war, and many were killed as a result of my intervention. How long did you take?' 6 months. 'Lash him with 100 lashes. And then, somewhat shyly, a demon came up and said, 'I managed to cause one of the desert fathers to fall into a sin of impurity.' 'You did what?' 'Place him here before me and crown him.' It could be your case as well, my friends. For what the demon hitherto couldn't manage, he might be managing calmly with you when you open a little screen and look at what he wants you to look at, so as to contaminate your interior life forevermore. My friends, we are now entering the high point of the whole year. It's not the time to look at Coronation Street or worse. It's the time to go on your knees, take up the scriptures, and give quality time. For Jesus is alone, as he was in Gethsemane. Could you not watch with me 1 hour? We have a lot of excuses, do we not? And the most respectable is work. Work out of order is gaining merit for the wrong side. The best time of all is before, not after. Beginnings check and consequences follow. Claim the most beautiful hours of the 24 for Jesus. The secret of the interior life, my friends, hangs on the finger of the elect. The moment of the rising is in your control. So rather than share the night after midnight with old Nick, get up early and claim the day for Jesus Christ, Alpha and Omega.
Amen. pro nobis, sub Pontio Pilato, passus de sebe multus